Alexa, pause. So good morning, everybody. Hope it's coming in okay. First, I want to thank everybody for last month. I set up some goals for last month and we came within $3. In other words, we hit those goals for the fundraising. So all of you that are supporting the channel, thank you very much. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good day, good day, good day. Having a few problems with the dashboard that sets this up in YouTube, but it's working, but it's difficult for me. There's a latency in it. There's a time lag that I'm seeing that's kind of disorienting. I'll get used to it here in a minute. I looked for alternatives to the YouTube, but my God, either they're horrible pieces of software or they're $200–300. So I've got to go with a YouTube version and just deal with the problems that come with it. Today, I'm actually going to talk about the channel itself. And no, not about fundraising, so don't panic. But I get questions, I get emails, I get comments, and I get a lot of questions about the channel. I can't find this, I can't find that. I looked at your playlist, but there's only 15 videos. It doesn't show that there's all these videos. So I want to go down through and explain how it actually works so that you can find your way around it, find information that you want or need. And keep in mind, this will help you with any other YouTube channel because they're all essentially the same. First of all, the YouTube page for this channel is youtube.com/c/Cuenca, Ecuador. It's Cuenca, Ecuador because that's where I was living when I started this, and it can't be changed. So that's what the address is. If you go there, you go to the actual home page of this channel. Now, on the home page, if you scroll down when you get there, you're going to see some different playlists. It won't be all of the playlists, but it'll be the main playlist. I didn't want to clutter it up. You're going to see, first of all, uploads. That will show all the uploads in chronological order, with the most recent being the first one. Second row will be popular uploads. This is something made up by YouTube, not by me. I'm not always sure of the criteria because it's not always the most watched, but who knows with YouTube. The third one is one that I create. The third one is coffee time. So any coffee times I've done going back to when I was in Ecuador will be listed there. Fourth one is interviews, personal interviews that I've made with people, be it Ecuadorian or Colombian or gringos. That's where you're going to find interviews. The fifth one, how to be an expat. It's particular information like getting visas, language, all the questions that come up with how can I become an expat in Ecuador or Colombia. Sixth one is Colombia, seventh one is Ecuador. Now, when you look at those playlists there, they only have so many, maybe 15 or 20 videos in each playlist. And with 370 videos, obviously they're not all there. So if you look at the tab at the top, you've got the home page, and the next tab will be video. So if you click on the second tab, video, that's going to show all the videos, all 370 videos. And they'll be in order from the most recent done going backwards. The third tab is playlist. And remember, this works pretty much for, the playlists will be different, but every YouTube channel will have this. So if there's a channel you like and there's information you want to find, this is how you find it. So the third tab is playlist, and that's the playlist that were on the home page, except they're complete playlists. The fourth one is community, and this one is, you know, very overlooked. I swear there's few people that are aware of it. But this is where, first of all, I post updates, like written updates. You know, the next video is going to be such and such, or just anything of, I feel it's like an announcement. It's like a community bulletin board. You can also post. It's a good place for comments or questions if it's not pertaining to the specific video. Sorry, get distracted by the latency on the questions too, but I'll get to the questions here. Also, I want to point out that on the videos, and you don't see this if you're watching it on TV, but if you're watching it on your laptop or on your cell phone, below the video, there'll be a comment section. And sometimes you have to click to open it. Particularly on your cell phone, it'll be closed. And I think there's a little, like a down arrow, and you click that and it opens up the comment section. And I do get asked a lot about what software do you use? What kind of equipment are you using? How do I reach you? Where's your support information? All those basic things about a channel. It's all there in the comment section. So again, it goes for every YouTube channel. Now, some guys don't put anything in there. That's fine too. But whenever I get asked over and over and over something, I try to put it in the comment section so people can find it. Okay, enough of that. I was asked about comparing supermarkets from Ecuador to Colombia. So I'm going to narrow this down, and I'm going to talk about supermarkets in Cuenca, which is pretty much the same as everywhere in Ecuador, and Armenia, which is pretty much the same. The first big difference you have between, this latency is driving me crazy. The latency, if you're not, it's delay. I've got probably a 3-second delay. Okay, I should just not look. The biggest difference right from the get-go from Ecuador and Colombia is in Ecuador, you have 3 or 4 major national chains. In Colombia, last time I counted, I did a video on some of this. I think it was 16 national chains, minimum of 16, very possibly more. So you have a ton of selection when it comes to chains. Now, I was asked, are the supermarkets better in Colombia than in Ecuador? That's such a difficult question because it depends on what supermarket you're talking about and which one. For example, Olympica is a major chain, and 1 block from my house, there's an Olympica that's an old-timey one. It's the one I went into and I talk about the meat section, how bad it stinks. It's a very small one. It doesn't have much of anything except basics. It's like a 7-Eleven on steroids, I guess. Or it's just like in the United States, our supermarkets used to be very small, maybe 7 or 8 aisles. It's like that. But if I go down to the mall where there's another Olympica that was built a few years ago, and that's about 10 blocks from my house, 15-minute walk, 15-minute walk. That's huge. I just did the Olympica video on that, the last video. That's huge. And it's not only got, groceries, but it's kind of like a super Walmart. You've got, washers and dryers and stoves and refrigerators and clothing and shoes and pretty much anything that you want or need are going to be in there. So, one is pretty awesome and the other one has a stinky meat department. Now in Ecuador, I really liked, and I know people slam this sometimes, but I liked Super Maxi. Super Maxi was one of the best places to get safe food. You could get clean, fresh, safe food there. And that's not always the easiest thing to find in Ecuador because, supermercados are a big thing there. But the supermercados, it's like a minefield. You really have to be careful who you're buying from because, you buy, let's say I want to buy these, these fruits here. They put them in the bag for you and you get home and you find out that they slipped in a rotten one. I mean, it's just the way it is. Okay, so it's dirt cheap and you say, well, I'll just throw it away. But, when you're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables there, you find that all the ones you throw away kind of, in the end, kind of wash away that cheapness. Where if you go to Super Maxi, you're picking, but you're not seeing any rotten ones anyway. It's a supermarket that's very well done. It's very modern, clean, and they're particular about what goes out on the shelves, the fruits and vegetables. So yeah, you pay more, you're paying for that service. To me, it was worth it. I don't like going home and start to throw away this, that, and the other thing. And there, shop there, you don't get that. But you don't have a lot of supermarkets. There's a chain, I don't remember the name of it. I did a video on it in Cuenca. It's more of a, it's kind of like a supermarket, but it's a mercado. And you go in there and it's just kind of a mess and it's hit and miss and, there's quality issues. So, what's the other one? Coral Central. Coral Central, halfway decent, but again, depends on the location you go to. But so many things are just overpriced. You go in and you buy a little thing of peanut butter and it's going to cost you $10, $8-10. And, here I think I mentioned the video, I bought this big thing of peanut butter, great big thing. And it was less than that, so I'm getting more than twice as much for less than half the money. So prices tend to be better than there. Hold on just a second, bear with me. Okay. Now in Colombia, you've got, there's just so many. There's Ara, there's La Catorce, there's Olympica, there's Caruja. You can just go on and on and on with all the supermarkets here. And also, like in the United States, you have levels, who's their demographic? In Ecuador, it's just supermarket. Here, it's demographics. Like, for example, if you're very low income and you're just looking for bargains and having the top quality is less important than getting, bang for your buck, then you go to a place like Ara. Lacatorsi is kind of in the middle. There's Lacatorsis like Olympica. There's some that are just crappy, and there's some that are like, ooh, that's really nice. Prices are about the same in Olympica and Lacatorsi. And then you get one that we don't have in Armenia, but it's throughout Colombia. There was one in Manizales, where I lived. It's Karulla, 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 and it's like a Wegmans or a Whole Foods. Really nice. They spend a lot of time on display when you walk in. It's like out of a magazine. Everything is just, it's not these sterile aisles. They have these seasonal displays or festival displays. Halloween, you're going to get, pumpkins and leaves, and you'd think that you just walked into this high-end supermarket in the United States. Prices there are a bit more, not drastically more, but if it's going to be a little more, it'll be in that place. And but the flip side of that is you find things that you can't find in a lot of other ones. For example, if you want Argentina beef or US beef, it's right there on the shelf. Cheeses, it's like going, like I said, going into a Wegmans or a Whole Food, and they've got a lot of import goods at reasonable prices. Import goods in Ecuador are unreasonable prices. Here, they're pretty reasonable. It's going to cost you more, but as compared to Ecuador, it's much better. There are things that I can't pay that. When I was in Ecuador, it's like I'll just do without. Where here, it's like, well, it's a bit more, but it's not that much more, and so I'm going to get it once in a while. Peanut butter being one of those things. I mean, you really don't want to buy a little jar and pay $10 for it. I don't like it that much. There are several productions in Medellin. Yes, they're all over the country. There just isn't one here. But what we do have here in Armenia is Supermercado, which is the brand name, and it's a lot like, it's not real big, but it's got things like Karulla. The only thing it doesn't have is US beef. Well, actually, I take that back. Sometimes they do have it there. It'll be vacuum packed. But it's the nice thing about the Supermercado in Armenia is the pricing of all the products on the shelves are pretty much the same as in Olympica or Lacatorsi. They're not bargain basement like Ara, but they're reasonable prices. They're not inflated up. Where Karulla, you pay a bit more. In Supermercado, you don't, and that's pretty nice. But if you're buying an import thing that you're not finding in another store, you're obviously it's going to be more than if it's compared to a local product. So you have to decide if the local product is good enough. Now, again, the nice thing here in Colombia that I didn't necessarily find in Ecuador is that there are standards here. They're established, and you have to meet those standards. There's a beef council, a pork council. You have that mentality here. And so when you buy a local product, and with an exception, and I'll tell you that in a minute, but when you buy a local product, there's a good chance it's going to be very similar to what you're expecting. Even simple things like dishwashing liquid. It's fine. It's as good as anything you're going to get with a US brand. And so if you see something like that, what I would suggest is whatever you buy as staples and you see the local brand that's going to be less money, give it a try. If you don't like it, then go back to the brand that you love. But there's all kinds of local brands that I've come to appreciate. Now, the exception I was talking about is milk products. Now, the milk products in Ecuador, personally, I thought they're almost all just horrendous. They had this weird taste. Now, I don't know how to describe it because it's a taste, but it tasted like a barnyard smells. It just had this weird aftertaste. And there's something in my memory, but I can't kind of bring it out. So for the past 3-4 years, I can't really put my finger on it. But I don't like the milk product, the cheeses. They're just kind of foul. And based on all the people that come from the US and Canada and England that post on Facebook, it seems I'm not the only one. Most everybody has this as an issue. Here, there is some of that, but not very much of it, fortunately. But you kind of have to you have to find your way when you get here. Now, this is what I found. There's a Colombian brand that's actually also sold in Ecuador called Alpina, like Alpine, Alpina. It's a big, big company. And those products are pretty reliable. And if you saw me shopping in the Olympica and you saw me pull the milk off the shelf, that was zero fat skim milk Alpina. Their cheeses are good. They don't have that weird aftertaste. Most of the products here don't, but every once in a while, you pull a sliced cheese for sandwiches off the shelf. I ended up throwing it away. I mean, it was just horrendous. So I won't buy that brand again. So with milk products, there is a little bit of hit and miss, but for the most part, the products here are a little more reliable than I found them in Ecuador. Again, with a big exception for a lot of things, Super Maxi. I really liked Super Maxi, and I liked the high quality. I liked the dependability. I liked the service that they gave you. I liked it was clean. Last thing I think I'll mention on this is eggs. It's traditional here in Ecuador and many places in the world, they don't refrigerate eggs. But you have to be careful with this because if you get eggs like when I lived in Hiron, there was a little tienda and they had chickens in the back, and they would go back, get the eggs from the chickens, and they'd put them in these little crates, and you'd buy them. So I mean, really, you could see them. I would see them get the eggs and put them in there. So you could say, yeah, that's pretty fresh. But you take those eggs, it was $7 for $1. But you take those eggs and they're covered in chicken poop. Okay, that's just how it goes. So you go home and you wash it. Now, some people don't. They put it in a basket, put it out on the counter. Okay, that's fine. I'm not a big fan of chicken poop. But if you wash those eggs, the minute you wash them, there's a coating that protects those eggs and keeps them from spoiling, at least for a longer period of time. And once you wash them, you must refrigerate them. Well, that's what I did there. Now, when I would go to Super Maxi, I would just buy them, bring them home in the cart, and I put them in the refrigerator like I did in the US. And I was told you don't have to do that. Well, you do because they're washed, they're clean. And the brand I was buying off the shelf, but there was no chicken poop on them. They were obviously cleaned. And once you clean them, that's an issue. Well, it doesn't seem to be a big, I don't know, it seems to be lacking information in Ecuador and Colombia on this, because I find it here too, where there's some brands of eggs here that they wash, but they're sitting on the shelf. They're not refrigerated. And one of the things that indicates an egg that's not necessarily bad, but it's considered old, is if you break it and the white comes out like water. And I run into that quite a bit because you don't know exactly how those eggs are going to come to you. And I ran into that a lot in Ecuador also, and something I never ran into the United States. Now, in the US, you have more choices there. You can buy the 99 cent a dozen that's from some place that's got 3 billion chickens and they're all next to each other. You know, we've all seen that. And they tend not to have a lot of flavor to them. Or you can pay $3, $4, $5 for a dozen of free range, blah, 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 all the buzzwords, organic. And they have flavor. You're just going to pay a lot more for them. Here, you're going to pay $2, $3 for a dozen, and they don't have these big chicken farms, so it's fairly similar, but you don't really know the freshness of the egg. Now, I've never gotten a rotten egg here or in Ecuador, but I've gotten many where I crack them open and it's like water is inside. And it's not a great sign. It's when you have that, that's not, oh, that's because it's real, natural, organic. And I've seen that on Facebook. No, that's not the case. So it's not going to kill you. You know, I just go ahead and cook them up anyway. But it is a little unnerving, a little disconcerting. And that is also something that Ecuador and Colombia shares, as well as most of Latin America. My advice is when you get the eggs, you wash them and you put them in the refrigerator and do it that way. I don't advise that you put them on the counter. Just because you bought them that way doesn't mean it needs to be that way, because you don't know the history. Now, there's a brand that I buy here that actually has on each egg, kind of like they did in the supermarket, it's got a date stamp on it. So I feel a little bit better about that, even though sometimes I'll break it open and it's a little runny. Okay, that's probably way too much information on eggs, but eggs such a basic product. If you've never been here, these are things that you're not going to know, and you should know. You should be aware of it. All right. Oh, I said the last thing, but here's the last thing. In Ecuador, you have this cultural thing where there's mercados that are these 1, 2, 3-story large facilities, and every day that you go, some are, like in Cuenca, they're open every day of the week. In Giron, they would be open only on Sunday because it's a community of 2,000 people. So there's different characteristics depending on where you go. But in Cuenca, there's 3 or 4 large mercados like this. And people have their stalls that they go to, you know, every morning they go and sell their wares. And you've got to be aware of a lot of them because of the toxic chemicals. And usually when you go into these mercados, they kind of stink because the meat departments, it's just kind of horrifying. It's like if you've seen a nasty zombie movie, then you can imagine the meat department in some of these mercados. For me, they're very interesting, and there's good things about them, but for the most part, I have to be honest. I mean, for me, it's almost like a horror show. It's just that I didn't go to those very much once I was there for a while. The more I learned about the food chain, food supply, things going on, the less I wanted to be part of that, and the more I gravitated to the Super Maxi. In Colombia, in Armenia, we don't have that kind of tradition. Here, it's more like farmers market. It's, you know, they come in, you know, from their farms and they have their own booths and they're selling their products, for example. Where in the mercados, you know, they're bringing it from this farmer or that farmer or their own and selling it, or imported stuff. Here, it's more, it's really more like the farmers markets that we had in upstate New York. They don't have a big building for it. There's some indoor stalls, there's outdoor stalls, and there's just general areas of the city that you go and find those. For fruits, the thing I like about the fruits is you don't have to go to their mercado or the supermarket to get fruits. That it's every 4 or 5 blocks probably you have these fruit stands, and I love that. Right across from the Olympica, there's a fruit stand here that has excellent fruit. You know, you cut into a watermelon, it's sweet and delicious. It's not too dry and cracking, or it's doesn't have any flavor to it. I mean, it's really good. It's like one of my favorite fruits is watermelon. So the differences exist there as well. We don't have the big, huge mercados, government subsidized. We have more farmers markets that are just independent people setting up shop. I do believe that they need to have a permit, but I can't swear to that. But there's got to be, it has to be something like that, because you see the same people in the same location, and you know, they wheel their carts over and set them up. And if there wasn't a permit, then somebody else would get there earlier and grab their sweet spot, you know. So it must be permitted, but that wouldn't surprise me, because Colombia, when it comes to regulations and food certifications and restaurants, it's much more in line with what you're used to in North America, whereas Ecuador, those things really don't exist. So much for that. We're almost to the questions. So if you got questions, go ahead and start posting them now. Last thing I want to mention, let's see if I covered everything. Yep. Keep in mind that what the Coffee Time Live is for me to cover various topics based on feedback that I get that need to be answered, and this is a good place to answer them. I respond in writing to a lot, but if something is repeated over and over again, this is a great place for me to do it. Give you any kind of news and update, and that's essentially about 30 minutes. And then after that, up to about 30 minutes, you can pose any questions that you have, and I'll answer them. If you care to donate to the channel during Coffee Time Live, I certainly won't argue about it. I appreciate it. And that's how, that's actually how we really hit our goal for last month. Last thing, the last thing, well, this is a different topic. I mentioned about subscriptions and how there was only about 20% of the people that watch videos that were actually subscribed. That's up to 38% since I talked about that. So thank you for that. And we fall now into the YouTube average for channels. That's about average for YouTube channels, right in the middle. However, a lot of you are still not aware, because I'm getting people that are subscribed and tell me, I didn't know about such and such. When you hit the subscription button, there is a bell, and you have to click on that bell if you want to get notified. So if you want to know that I put up a video, click on the bell. If you want notifications for premieres or for live like this, you got to click that bell. And that's all I got. So let me see what we have for questions today. What economy hotel do you recommend in Armenia? Well, I can't really do that. I have talked about some hotels in the past in the videos. Write to me, I'll tell you to some place. I can't even think of the name. There's cafeteria, something or other. It's downtown. That's where I almost always used to stay. If you were there for a week or more, it worked out to about $9. Depends on the time of year. Very popular times, it could cost more. Wanderlust is a really nice place. They have one hotel room that's private. The rest is like hostels, but it's a great location. and it's right across the street from Parque Fundadores. It's very nice. People are friendly. They've got some amenities there. Great coffee shop on the first floor. But I guess that would be something you might want to look at past videos or talk to me about, personally. I haven't stayed in all of them, so I can't really speak to all of them. Okay, restore comments. What happened to our lunch? I don't know. Didn't I say remind me as we get close? Because I get so busy and I'll forget. So, we can still do it. Sorry about that, but I do get busy, and I kind of have to be reminded because I have so many requests, so many emails. This is more than a full-time job for me, and I'm trying to live my life at the same time. And sometimes it gets a little complicated. I will tell you, this past week, I wasn't feeling real well. I can't really say I was sick, but I had no energy. I usually don't sleep but about 4 hours a night. I found myself sleeping like 8 hours. I don't know what was going on. I feel a lot better now, but it was a weird week. Anyway, all right, what do we got? Perugia has a cafe and deli in store, and you can sit and eat. Not in all of them, but yes, most of them. It's like I said, it's very much like U75. Thank you, appreciate it. It's a lot like Whole Foods or Wegmans. Cuenca mercados are fun, but you need to wash everything. That's absolutely true. As a matter of fact, it's not an option because of the chemicals, but not only the chemicals, a lot of the farmers in Ecuador use gray water. Gray water is like human waste. And that's where a lot of the parasite issues in Ecuador come from. And locals know that they'll use Clorox as in different home remedies. You can buy this cleanser that will prepare vegetables and fruits, but you absolutely need to wash them. What are my impressions of the south side of town in Armenia? My impressions are it's very, there's some very nice communities. I've talked about some. You're going to find more impoverished communities. That's pretty much where they're located in Armenia, but it's not all of the south. Most of Armenia is middle class by far, and most of the south is working class, middle class. The thing I don't like about it is this breeze that I always have here every single day. In the south, that's very often not the case. I'll talk to a friend who's, well, actually most everybody I know lives in the south. And, we say, so what's your weather today? And, well, it's hot and the air is kind of dead. And I'm here and it's like very comfortable with a breeze. The microclimates are a big thing here. And just a mile south of me, the weather can be very different. I can see rainstorms over them and bright sunshine here. So I could live in the south, but it would be a little warm for my taste, but I like it cool. If you like warm weather, if you like, well, I wouldn't say it's not really hot when you get some hot days, but the breeze makes all the difference, and it's always a few degrees cooler here, so that's the thing for me. But if you want to live in the south, where it's cheaper to live, and you can find some very nice communities, very safe communities. People are concerned about that. Some great places down there. Does PriceSmart do deliveries for big ticket items? Yes. If you go in there, for example, buy a refrigerator and you're living in Armenia, they'll bring it to you. And that goes for the home center, pretty much everywhere. And if it's local, Olympica, for example, I was in Olympica a couple weeks ago, and I'm not sure why they asked me on that day, but they just wanted me to know that the service was available. I go up to the checkout, and I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 plastic bags, and they say, do you want to take them with you, or do you want us to bring them to your apartment? Because if I'm walking, maybe I don't want to walk with it. It was very nice. And I know that they have delivery, but they don't always, offer it like that. Pretty much delivery is a thing here. So yeah, the answer is yes. PriceSmart will not bring a bag of groceries to Armenia. If you buy a stove, a refrigerator, a TV, or something like that, yes. Thank you. I definitely, happy Sunday, Lauren. Definitely appreciate the support of the channel. Yeah, that sounds good. At the Margarita dell'Amore, you're talking about the restaurant in Parque de la Vida. How is the population of Armenia compared to that of Cuenca in terms of diversity and tolerance? Well, Ecuador is a very prejudiced country. I did several, but one in particular about prejudice in Ecuador. It's well hidden, and I explain all this in that video, so I'm not going to do that here. But it is a very prejudiced country, one city against the other, one race against the other, whether you're on the coast, the monkey people live on the coast, monos. It's us versus them mentality. Now, it's not overt, and they'll be nice and polite. And again, I've talked about that kind of facade also. Gringos stand out like a sore thumb, and you're treated, differently. You don't notice it right away. My friend Maria schooled me on this. We sat in Central Park in Cuenca having a coffee, and she would point things out to me that I had never noticed. I was oblivious to it, which led to ongoing conversations over a number of weeks about the situation, about how the rich people treat poor people. Then you begin to notice it in restaurants where people, they snap their fingers and treat the waitress like a dog. And, it becomes, it's like this, this Band-Aid is peeled off this ugly wound. I was more appreciative when I didn't know it, but it's there. Diversity, it's fairly diverse. Armenia, first of all, prejudice will occur anywhere, but it's not so much a thing here. People don't really think about skin color. They don't have a history that goes in that direction. And here, there was a resentment with the Spanish, so they didn't adopt as so much the stratus, the top level looking down on the bottom level, as much as they did in Ecuador, although that does exist somewhat here. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But for the most part, here in Armenia, people are people. I have never felt like a standout gringo in Armenia. And in Cuenca, you can't help but feel like that. People are going to stare. It just, you feel like, you're in a freak show there as compared to here. Again, you can be oblivious. It's not overt. It's not, it's not like they're going to come up and cut your throat for it. But it exists there where it's so much less here. as far as diversity here, this entire country is way more diverse. Can you flush toilet paper in Armenia? In much of South America, Central America, they have this thing where you don't flush toilet paper down the toilet. I've always disregarded that. But there are places where the infrastructure is so bad, it can be problematic. And so they don't want to have that on an ongoing basis. But it became something where everybody still believes that, it seems, except the infrastructure is good. I mean, there is absolutely no problem with the infrastructure here. In the north, it's all relatively new. So it's certainly not an issue. But I don't find it being asked for as much here as in Ecuador. In Ecuador, you go to every hostel, there'll be a little sign, telling you to remind you, don't flush toilet paper. And here, as you know, I travel around and I stay in different places. I never see those signs. So it's a thing here, but not so much. It's more of an old thing, where in Ecuador it's still alive and well. As to when you can and can't, you kind of have to determine that. If you're staying in the heart of town where everything's, from the 1600s, then you might want to be careful about it. Does Armenia have Rappi motorcycle delivery? No, they do not. There's Uber, iFood, Domicilio, and the place in itself has individual delivery. Olympica has its delivery, Supermercado has its, Home Center has its, so they have their own. Rappi is not here. I don't miss it because, I mean, how many do you really need? Also, it is so easy to either find a truck, 20,000 pesos, $8, and he'll bring something from one place to all the way across the city and carry it up to you. And if you're buying something, just ask them to include delivery, and 9 times out of 10 they will. That includes used things. When I bought this cell phone, I asked them to deliver it, and they delivered it. When I bought the refrigerator, they delivered it. When I bought the washing machine, they delivered it. So the furniture, they delivered it. So they not only delivered it, but they, carried it up here for me. So it's far easier here than it ever was for me in the United States. In the US, many places didn't deliver unless it was a very high ticket item, and you really had to go around and find a friend who had a truck. Here, there's just so many people willing to do it. And if you don't know, just ask the person you're buying from, even if you throw them an extra 20,000 pesos or something. Okay, so I notice a lot of mopeds, scooters in the videos. Is that a good option in Armenia? I don't recommend it. I don't really see accidents here. It's amazing the lack of accidents. I haven't seen a single accident in the 9 months I've been here in Armenia. Not one single accident. In Cuenca, you saw them daily. God forbid you're on a motorcycle there. Here, people are more cautious, but motorcycles are dangerous anywhere where there's a lot of traffic. And there's a lot of places where there's a fair amount of traffic. Excuse me. But in Armenia, you really don't need it. With buses and taxis, prices are so cheap. I just don't know that you need it. I have no desire for it. I do want to long range get a car. It'll be a cheap small car, but only because of doing videos outside of Armenia. So if I'm going to do a video like I've done recently, Instead of taking the bus, I would rather get in the car and go. But I would not use that car inside Armenia unless I had a situation where I'm going to go to the grocery store, or maybe I'll go to Price Mart and I'm going to buy a couple $100 worth of stuff. Yeah, then a car would be handy. But then there's other ways around it. So it's you learn new ways to do things. All right. So getting past here. Are Colombians prejudiced against Chinese people? Are there a lot of Chinese or Asian people in Colombia? Prejudice isn't really a thing here. I will say that I'm starting to see resentment for Venezuelans that I didn't see last year. It's not overt, nobody's doing anything to them, but there's spikes of crime and unemployment issues, and it is because of the refugee situation. The thing is, do you blame the person who's just trying to survive, or do you kind of look past it? It gets hard to not blame the person if that's the person who just stole your cell phone. So, and in Ecuador, it's the same thing. You're starting to see people, kind of rise up against Venezuelans and tar and feather them, run them out of town, but they're committing crimes, rapes, murders. These things are happening in Ecuador, and people are just kind of fed up with it. As far as Chinese go, no, there's not a big thing. The thing that I see about Chinese is similar to what I saw in Ecuador, maybe more so here, is really more about products. They're not real fond of the reputation for Chinese products here are, yeah, they're cheap, but they're crap and it's a waste of money. So you're better off buying a good brand. That's why you see all of these, not all, but most of these motor scooters are Yamaha, they're Honda, they're Suzuki. They're established brands that last forever. And you'll see AKT and a few Chinese brands, but they're more problematic. They just don't hold up. So yeah, they're cheap to buy, but then they don't last very long. And so products have an issue, but if you're Chinese and you come here, you're not going to have any problems. The culture here is they're just not like that. It's more like that in Ecuador. Look up that video on prejudice. Oh, going back on the channel, when I described the tabs, when I left off, there's a search. It's all the way to the right. There's a search. So it's got the little magnifying glass. Click that search and put in prejudice, for example, and it'll bring up that video. So that's how you can find, certain topics. You put it in the search, it'll bring it up. It's not foolproof, and it might bring up more videos than you want, but it's a way. Okay, public toilets. Do they have toilet paper in Colombia? For the most part, yes, particularly if you're in any of the cities. If you go to the south part of Colombia, it's a lot like Ecuador, like in Pasto. And so Pasto is really like Cuenca. It's a Colombian Cuenca. The people are the same, they eat cuy, the indigenous are the same, the customs, it really is just another Cuenca. And so you're going to find things like Ecuador down on the south part. But everywhere here, if you go into a public restroom, there's going to be toilet paper. It's very much like North America here. In Ecuador, because the reason he posed the question is you'd never find toilet paper. You'd think it was made out of gold leaf. You have to pay a dime or a quarter to get this two or three sheets of toilet paper to go in, from a toilet attendant. It's just problematic. And you learn in Ecuador to carry your own. You take some off a roll and put it in your backpack, or inside a coat pocket or something. You don't have to worry about it here. Sugar Skull Gaming. Welcome to the channel. I haven't seen you before, but I appreciate he's obviously here in Colombia. And as I'm commenting on these different things like toilet paper and Chinese products like that, he's confirming based on his experiences, what I'm saying. Of course, because I'm just telling you how it is. I'm not making anything up. I'm not out to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm not going to protect you from anything. If you need to know the truth, that's what I'm trying to give you. How well do you play guitar? Can you play us a tune? No, I can't play you a tune. I started playing guitar when I was 15. I played in a high school band. Like everybody else, I played guitar to get the chicks. I've had a guitar in my life, my entire life. But I can set it down and not play it for 3-4 years at a time. So I can play, but I really have to practice for a while. I mostly played for my kids or for myself, except in high school when it was to get chicks. I was really into it then. Is Armenia accepting of LGBT people? Armenia, for the most part, could care less. There's all of that exists everywhere else, whatever percentage of 5 or 10% of 7%, whatever that stat is, that you find in every country, regardless of what the country is like, whether they're accepting or not accepting, it's a pretty steady percentage of the population. So you have the same thing in Colombia. And I'm not part of that community, so I can't give you a lot of detail, but I can tell you in talking to friends, and they don't, crack little knowing jokes or, it's people could care less here about who or what you are when it comes to that. They're more concerned, are you a good person or are you not a good person? That's how I find it. Next city for a video is, well, you'll find out when I put it out there on Wednesday. So it'd be my secret. So it's been almost an hour. I think that's it. To those that have donated to the channel today, thank you very much. See if we can hit our goal for the next month. The purpose of this month of August is to try to get that new little camera with a stabilizer, the DJI. It's $468. I don't know that I'm going to get there this month, but I need to do something because you've seen the difference in the videos, the kind of herky jerk, camera shots, plus the issue of having, if I use something larger, I get shut down because videos in public here, it's really frowned upon. I'm stopped all the time. I can use my GoPro, I can kind of hide that, but the stabilization is just horrendous. It's a GoPro 5, not a 7. The stabilization in 7 is really good, but it really kind of sucks in the GoPro 5. Osmo Pocket, yeah, that's the Osmo. I think it's the Osmo 2. Maybe not, but yeah, the Pocket. You have one, I don't. I need one, so it can be more covert and it can be stabilized. People are getting seasick on this herky. We got away from it while I was able to use a stabilizer, but I just can't use it right now because it keeps freezing my videos. And if I take the phone off the stabilizer and use it, it works fine. So it's something in the stabilizer itself. It's not update. I can't seem to find any solution for it. It's going to take a repair shop, and a repair shop will probably cost more than the item costs. So it was great, but it's problematic. Okay, so I'm glad you have one. Rub it in. That's it for today. I will see you next Sunday. I do have something planned. I keep getting asked, as you know, about the dating situation. And I've explained to you my concerns about it. It's really not a topic I want to talk about, but I have been giving it a lot of thought, and I am going to do something on it, and it's going to be live like this, and it'll probably be on a Saturday night. So it'll be a Saturday night live. I won't go into a lot of detail that you're probably going to want to know, but I am going to encapsulate my experiences, do's and don'ts, some things that could be useful. It's just not going to be down and dirty. It's not going to be gritty. It's not going to be detailed. I'm not going to, brag about conquests. Those things are just not going to exist. But that will be coming up possibly this coming Saturday, more likely Saturday after. So there'll be a Saturday Night Live, and we want to keep this Sunday going at this time. So that's it. Thank you all. Thank you again for the support. Thanks everybody for being here. Be ready next week with a boatload of questions, and I'll be ready to answer them. And we're going to end this live stream, maybe. Oh my God. I go back to this problem that I had.